So this is the, like, as I promised you guys, this is the next part of the series of videos where I'll now be showcasing to you why I'll be playing Marincess with this Mermail Atlantean engine, and why I believe it's very, very good. You know, especially, you know, in the best of one format. You know, I've been saying for a long time, we needed something that actually helps us play into boards and also play around, you know, the normal summon, because, you know, the normal summon is the biggest weakness of the Mermail Marincess deck. So I actually believe that this will be actually a very, very good engine to run. And I'm not even kidding. This might be the best version you've seen to date, because I've been playing this deck for literally months, ever since it actually was announced in the OCG, when the cards were available. I've actually been testing it, you know, going in the lab, practicing as much as I can, just like with any other deck I've showed you guys, finding a way to make it work. And I think I've made it work. So what you see on screen now is obviously just a roughly 23, 24-ish card engine, which I'll explain exactly what the ratios are and why I think for now this is kind of the ratio you have to work with. Obviously as a baseline, of course, you can always modify it to what you want it to be, but I think in Marincess it's very important to know how the interactions actually work and how it's going to be. So let's look at the card by card. So you've already seen in the previous video the Abyss Shrine, the Shadow Squad, the Mermail Atlantean, the Dragon Lord, and the other cards which and also the Triana as well as the Abyss Strike. Now you notice Abyss Strike is not in this build because it's not really needed. It's more for pure Mermail, other Ice Barrier, Goaty, other builds. This one, you don't really need it. It's because remember, your main strategy is still going to be Marincess all the time. You're just running additional engine to help you play around, you know, hand traps, and also help you to go second, also to have additional ways to play the game. So what are the cards that I'm running in combination with the Mermail cards with Marincess? Because Marincess is more or less unchanged. I mean, the same extra deck is more or less the same. There are going to be slight changes to the deck that they were before, but basically I'm just going to showcase to you how this engine kind of fits in together and why I think it's really, really good. So you'll see the main deck, okay, I'm running 2 Neptibus, okay. Now you could say, why are you not running 3? Well, remember, you are clashing with your other normal summons in the deck. So the other normal summons are going to be, you know, Blue Tang, it's going to be Spring Girl, potentially, obviously why would you normal summon it, but you have Blue Tang, you have Spring Girl, you have Aqua Angel. That's also not mentioned here, but it's also there. Actually, no, let me just add Aqua Angel in here now, so that people don't get confused there. What's happening? Where is Aqua Angel? There it is, Aqua Angel. Okay, let's just throw it in there. Okay. So this is why I think this is the kind of the ratio you have to run, because you don't need to run many normal summons in the deck, because that's also the downside of running multiple decks. You going to, obviously, if you're playing multiple decks in one, you have to ask yourself, okay, how many normal summons are in the deck? If there are too many normal summons, and I have to now pick and choose which one is going to be play around hand traps more, that's where now you have to kind of think about, okay, what is the cost benefit in a way. So that's why I don't want to run many normal summons, because essentially your engine is still, yes, you play Marincess, same standard cards, but your ratios will be slightly different depending on which version you're playing. The same thing with now the Atlantean. Now obviously with Atlantean, 3 Dragoon is a no-brainer. You have to run 3 because it's like that good. So I think 3 Dragoon, 2 Shadow Squad is needed. Again, 3 is a bit overkill, but unless you want to see more of the Atlantean engine versus the Marincess engine, that's fine. But then obviously now it's just becoming a Mermail Atlantean deck at that point. You obviously want still Marincess to shine as the main focus of the deck. So that's why you rather want to see more Marincess cards than this. But if you see this, that's also fine too, because you can literally open 0 Marincess cards and still end on a Marincess end board. So I'll show you that in a bit. So I'm running 2 Shadow Squad. I'm running 1 Deep Sea Diva in the place of a 3rd Neptibus, because this can give me additional Sea Serpents, not just Neptibus. I can get other Sea Serpents if I need to, like Shadow Squad, like Even Tree, and even Deep Sea Minstrel, and even yeah, Deep Sea Minstrel. I'll explain what this card does. I think most of you know what this card does, but you can also summon this Azul from Deep Sea Diva. So that's my like main normal summons in a way. Then obviously Abyss Teus is good for a starter as well as extension, because again, triggered your Dragoons, your Shadow Squad. It triggers all your Atlantean stuff, which is very good. So going second is actually really nice. It also gives you a body on field and can also search your Mermail card. So the cards you'll be searching is going to be Abyss Shrine or Shadow Squad, but most of the time you're searching Abyss Shrine, because again, Abyss Shrine is your best way to either play around draw or access to summon your Mermail Atlantean. So again, I'm running one copy. I don't see a need to run two, like I did explain before in the last video, but in my builds that I've tested, you can get away with one copy. Two is okay-ish, but then remember your ratios of hand traps, board breakers, you have to always consider that. So if you want to see more engine, run two copies. If you want to run less to kind of still be viable to run some hand traps and board breakers, then you obviously have to run I would say one Abyss Shrine. You can get away with it, that's fine. That's perfectly okay. Now this is a sleeper, the Mermail Abyss Dine. So you're probably thinking, why is this card in the deck? This card actually helps you play around draw, and also gives you that extra body I was talking about in the previous video, where Shadow Squad will actually give you access to Abyss Shrine, Abyss Dine. Abyss Dine will revive back a Mermail, because it says if it's summoned by the effect of a Mermail monster, which is going to be Shadow Squad, you can Shadow Squad activate, summon Abyss Dine from the deck. It will trigger the effect because it was summoned by a Mermail monster. Target a level 3 or lower Mermail monster in your graveyard. Summon that target. So already you have two bodies, and potentially you might have a third body on the field. Discard a card, and guess what? You have access to a rank 7 Xyz to break boards. Just like that. So even under draw, right? What's going to happen? So let's say worst case scenario, I'll literally show you a combo or under draw. You can still make a decent board. The only thing is you won't be able to search wave, but you can still make a link 4 with other things. Pretty nice, because you have the ability to summon that additional body from your graveyard, which is very good. And most of the time this also can be a good searcher / extender, because let's say you open, let's say Abyss Pike, for example. It's also a good normal summon, but ideally you want to summon this from the deck, of course, because when it's summoned you can discard a card and add a level 3 water monster. So what are the targets? Atlantean Spirit, the Abyss Shrine, the Marincess Seahorse, the Abyss Dine, as well as Deep Sea Minstrel, as well as Shadow Squad also. But you're not going to be always searching that. You're searching these. These are your 4 targets mainly. So why is Minstrel here? Because it's obviously searchable under Dragoons, because Sea Serpent, and also it's a level 3. So why is this good? It looks at your opponent's hand and you can banish one card from it until the end phase. So you can potentially snuff away in the Nibiru, a potential hand trap, Imperm Veiler that you know is going to disrupt your combo. Deal with it, end phase, you get it back to them, and you go on as if nothing happened. So that is that. So that's why we run Minstrel. I explained why we run Abyss Dine. And Seahorse is the card that actually makes this thing work together. This is the card that bridges the Mermail engine into the Marincess engine because of Marincess Seahorse. Now, if you also have Aqua Angel in your hand also, then it also helps also, because you'll see in the combo, you also can have access to that just because you have a Marincess on field, which I'll explain how we get there. But this is the one you're searching off Abyss Pike, and then you're going to get Marincess Seahorse. You're like, okay, after Marincess Seahorse, you need to have a Marincess monster on field to be able to special summon it to that zone. Well, we're going to get that zone because at that point, you're going to have 3 bodies on field, Nibiru proof, and you're pretty much good to go. So, that's why we run that. Okay. And then the other cards I'm running, which again, you might say, okay, what ratios are you running at? So again, like I said, Abyss Pike, you need it in the deck because you ideally want to summon it from the deck, but also it's good if you normal summon it from the hand. Or because this plus Shadow Squad actually gives you 3 bodies still, like I said. because this, you discard that, can search Seahorse. Then what does Atlantean Shadow Squad do? Summons Abyssdine. Abyssdine gets back Shadow Squad, and guess what? You have 3 bodies on field. You can still do your combo again. So it's still pretty good. Because what's the main thing? You're spamming bodies on field. That's what Marincess was lacking, spamming bodies. So now you don't have to only rely on, okay, Marincess to spam bodies. Now you can just use other ways to spam bodies on field, because most of the Marincess monsters, Core Enemy, you know, Bubble Reef, they're all generic monsters. Even Crystal Heart is generic. So it's actually helping you to do that. That's why it's very important. So when you have, you know, these ratios, so you notice for Abyss Spike, what's the ideal ratio you want to play? I would say 1 copy is fine, but I've also play tested having 2 copies. So I would say 1 to 2 copies. You can just test it out and see how you feel. I will show you combos also where sometimes you can, if you open it with a Shadow Squad, it's actually not that bad. Because again, even if you get impermed on this, you still get 3 bodies on field, and you still have other cards in your hand to potentially extend. So it's not a bad deal. Even if you get impermed, it's fine. You can still play through the game. Because the main thing is, if you can trigger Shadow Squad and Dragoons, you're pretty much good to go. There's no way you're not resolving your stuff, because you can play through pretty much any hand trap they throw at you. It's pretty much fine. So that's the nice thing about it. Then in terms of the spells, you'll see the Marincess spells are still here. Dive and Wave, right? I'm only putting it here because I want to show you as part of the engine what actually happens. Same thing with the extra deck. So obviously this is not the ratios I'm saying you must be running. I'm just saying this is the engine that I'm showing to you on screen that makes it a consideration for your, if you want to run this as a potential engine piece in your Marincess build, for example. But also, if you take out the Marincess cards, then obviously you have the rest of the Mermail Atlantean engine itself. You can use in other decks as well, but I'm only focusing on Marincess now for today. So that's pretty much why I'm showcasing this. So as part of the combo, you will be able to search Dive, you will be able to search Wave, and then most of the time you will be able to search an equip spell. So that's why there's 2 here. There's obviously the Triana, which I explained, and then this is an old one. Very, very old spell. This is the Biscale of Mizuchi. Now, obviously, you might be thinking, okay, why is this in here? How practical does it come up? Well, spell cards are quite often used in Master Duel, so potentially board breakers like Dark Ruler, Droplets, Feather Duster, and all those things. You can deal with it because this card says when a spell effect is activated by your opponent on the field, resolves. So keyword is resolves. So if they are activating their stuff for costs and everything, that still goes through, but it still gets negated on their side, which is pretty insane. So like, for example, Super Poly, discard a card. They have to discard a card still, but on resolution is negated. So it's pretty insane. And also, this can reset this equip spell onto it, because if you send another water during that turn, maybe on your opponent's turn, you can re-equip it again. You saw it in my duel against I think it was White Forest Azamina Fiendsmith in my other video that I posted on YouTube recently, so I recommend checking that out. You'll literally see the interaction, what happened there. They tried to use Fiendsmith Tract, it didn't work. I used Abyss Shrine to discard a card, and because the King Nectibus triggers when a water monster is sent to the graveyard for an effect, you can re-equip the Mizuchi again. So it's like double interruption for spells. Pretty insane, right? So it can come up, but again, you don't have to play this. You can get away with just running the Triana only, but I feel nice knowing that I can at least negate a spell effect on the field, not have to rely on other things to deal with that. So if they want to call by something, if they want to use Dark Ruler, if they want to use Droplet, it's not going to work. So yeah, this is a flex spot that you can run here. You can easily cut out the Mizuchi. You can run just the Triana only, and you can run maybe another engine piece for the Mermail Atlantean stuff, maybe another Shadow Squad, another Abyss Shrine if you want to. But I've had no problem having this card in my toolbox because, again, it's adding more interruptions to your board. Now, we don't make a million negates. Don't get me wrong. We're not running this engine to spam negates, because that's not what this whole thing is about. It's about being able to play Yu-Gi-Oh! And having interactions. Because how many times have you played Master Duel where you felt, okay, I wish I had more interactions, but still naturally doing combos? That's pretty much what this is achieving. So yes, your turn 1 end board is not like super amazing, but it's still good enough and impressive that, okay, if you can't deal with it on the next turn, we're basically killing you next turn. So that's why I'm running this, because it doesn't come up all the time, but it definitely can come up and actually really good. So rounding up the engine, obviously in the extra deck, you'll notice there's 2 changes in the decks I'm going to be showcasing to you. So it will be, you know, something you must always consider. There's going to be 1 Mermail King and 1 Dragon Lord. Now remember, the extra deck space is 15 slots, so you normally have like 2 or 3 flex spots, normally Marincess, because I think 12 is like your core. So what I've been doing in the past, I was running double Bubble Reef and double Zelantis. But of course, we know in Master Duel how broken Zelantis is. So I've always been saying about maybe I might not cut Zelantis to 1 in Master Duel. I might just cut Bubble Reef to 1. But then at the same time, I was also running Gamia. Gamia was also in the deck. And this is a card I was saying to you guys before. This card is completely cuttable at any point because it doesn't come up all the time. It only comes up in certain situations. I mean, yes, it's nice to have, but it doesn't come up all the time. So this is a slot I was willing to give up just to make room for, you know, other things. So you will see in the list that I will show you that this is something that you can obviously consider. So you will see that just now. But basically, in terms of the engine, how it all functions, this is what it is. So what I'm going to do, we're going to obviously save this, right? In terms of the Marincess ratios, now you're probably thinking, what's happening with the Marincess ratios? Don't worry about that. I'll explain exactly what's going to happen after showcasing to you how the engine basically works. So we're going to do obviously a hand test, just to show you, like for example, like the 2-card combos that you can do, because and obviously the 1-card combo is Neptibus, but the other ones are a way to trigger Dragoons or Shadow Squad. Then you can also do the same combo, or you can normal summon Pike and Shadow Squad. So what I'll do, we'll just do a hand test just to show you, like basically I'll show you like the basic one, which is Abyss and Dragoons, and then you can take it from there. And then I'll show you different variants which basically end up on the same thing and the same idea, but it's just basically something you can think about. So this is obviously for more or less going first. Going second is slightly different. I will show you replays for that one, so just stay tuned for that one. So let's go into the hand test and I'll show you the basic combo, how this engine bridges together. So all you need is basically a way to trigger Dragoons. So just go ahead and Dragoons through you know, the Abyss, the Abyss, even, you know, Abyss Shrine, you've seen Minstrel, even Poseidra. If Poseidra is your opening hand with Dragoon, that's also fine too, because you can search another one also. So it's not a big deal. This also, as long as you can trigger Dragoon, it kicks off your combo. Even the Ice Jade Tuna Monster can also trigger it, because it triggers off discarding. And yes, also, just so that you guys don't feel left out, the Water Channeler also does trigger Dragoons as well. So as long as you have a way to discard Dragoons, you're good to go. I'll show you other tech cards that I'm running in my builds, but for now, this is what I'll be just showing you, the basic Mermail engine. And yeah, let's get on to the hand test. So this is just with, you know, like I said, having a way to trigger the Dragoons. Okay, so we're assuming there's no hand traps. We're just saying, okay, we're just showing you what is the basic engine that you can do when you have just maybe Abyss and Dragoons. Now notice, if you start with this, let's say you get ashed or whatever. Remember, you still have your normal summon. So if you have a Marincess monster or another way to make your plays, you still are fine, all good to go. So you can obviously trigger Dragoons by discarding it, and you're going to summon Abyss. Chain Link 1 is going to be Dragoons, of course. Chain Link 2 is going to be Abyss. So here you're going to add a level 4 lower Mermail monster. So here you have choices. You're obviously going to add Abyss Pike, you can add Shadow Squad, or you can add Abyss Shrine, or even Abyss Dine. Now this monster, and this monster, you like to have them in the deck. So here you're going to be searching for Abyss Shrine. Like I said, this also helps you play around Droll. And also, if you also have other cards in your hand that you already have wanted to search, you already have already, then you just have ways to add. Like you select Minstrel. If you have Minstrel already, that's perfectly fine. But if you don't have Minstrel, you're going to add the Neptibus. Okay, that's normally the play you're going to do. So now, you're going to obviously summon Neptibus, normal summon. Okay, cool. And now you're going to send Shadow Squad for cost, because Neptibus says you're going to send an Atlantean monster. So even though it's Mermail by name, it's an Atlantean monster, the Shadow Squad. And you're going to add a Atlantean card. So in this case, because I already have Dragoons in my hand already, this is where you're going to be searching Dragoons. But if you have a Dragoons already, you can search literally anything else. So you can search maybe a Atlantean, which is Poseidon in my case. And now you're going to trigger the Shadow Squad. Summon a level 4 or lower from the deck. I like summoning Abyss Pike. Okay? And then by doing so, when this card is special summoned or normal summoned, so it's a when effect, so it can miss timing. So always remember, this has to be chain link 1. If it's chain link 2, it's not going to trigger. Because unfortunately, it's a when. It's not a if. So when means it can miss timing. So it must be chain link 1, the last thing that happens. So what happens on summon? You discard a water monster. Keyword, you must discard a water monster. So it can be a Dragoons, it can be a Abyss Shrine, it can be whatever. So we're going to discard a Dragoons again, and we're going to add a Seals. And then we're going to add another card for follow-up. So in this case, it can be Minstrel. So how do you play around Nibiru? Remember, how many summons do we have here? This is the first summon, second summon, third summon. We still have 2 more summons. At this point, if you're not hand trapped, we can search for Minstrel. Okay. Remember the Abyss Shrine that we searched earlier? I'm not using any other cards in their hand. Obviously, we search also the Rumbling Atlantean, but let's say we had the Abyss Shrine only in their hand. We can use the Minstrel to discard the Abyss Shrine and then snipe a Nibiru or Ash or what else they have in their hand and get rid of it. So let's say they had Nibiru. You can get rid of it at this point. So Nibiru is not even a problem anymore. So you completely play around Nibiru, no problem. So obviously, because there's no opponent, Minstrel can't activate. But let's say you could, you would pitch that, a water monster, and then you go from there. Now, you'll notice we have 3 bodies on field. We have Seals in the hand. Like I said, how do we now bridge into Marincess combo? Because at this point, there's no Marincess cards in our hand at all. Only a Seal, so we search off Abyss Pike. So now we're going to go into Crystal Heart. You could go into Core Enemy, but that would be a mistake. Because before, when I started playtesting the deck, I used to go Core Enemy first, but then I realized, no, actually, I can go Crystal Heart first, because you can actually summon Core Enemy later. So I'll summon all of these 3, and I'll show you how. This is the important sequencing you have to do. So Crystal Heart is going to use any 2 monsters, doesn't really matter. You're obviously going to put it into a zone that is open. Keyword, a zone that's open, because obviously now Seals won't be able to trigger to its effect to summon from the hand, because there's no open link zone that a Marincess points to. So now that it points to a link zone, now we can summon it. Okay. Now, I like to do this personally, but I like to go into link 3 immediately. So I use Crystal Heart plus a first Sea Serpent or Aqua, and that's what you use it for. Then you put it into the zone here. I like to put in the writer zone, not this zone, because here normally things can happen in this zone here, so I like putting it this side. And now where do you go from here? Now you do your normal combo. Your normal combo is the same. So now you still have your link 1s. So now you use this. You go into Sea Angel. And notice you are protected from Imperm Veiler at this point. So if they want to target something, they have to target the Neptibus. So they've wasted their Veiler Imperm, because now you are completely protected because you're under the Neptibus. So how many times where we used to do our combo and we're like, oh, we lost to Imperm, we lost to a Veiler. Well, now we are completely playing right through it. You're going to use Dive, summon your monster from your graveyard. And you're going to go into link 1 now. Again, under Neptibus, so you complete the Protector from Vela Imperm. Add back your Seals. And you're going to go into Core and Enemy now. Again, still under the Neptibus zone. Going to revive back a water monster with 300 or less attack, which could be your Atlantean monsters, but in this case, we're going to summon our Marincess monsters, because Core and Enemy requires Marincess monsters. If it was water monsters, then of course you can literally summon anything you want, but in this case, you need to have Marincess monsters. So you have to go into that. Go Core Triangle. Trigger Core and Enemy. Going to add back die for follow-up, because you're obviously going to make sure that you have follow-up. Obviously, whatever's in your hand, also going to have that. Now, this is the nice thing about Marincess. What does Marincess do normally in their cards normally? They discard or send. So discard and send is basically the same thing. You're sending for cost. Discard for cost or sending for cost will trigger an Atlantean effect, or also trigger Mermail King Neptibus. So you send a water, because it says in the effect, send one water monster from your hand to the graveyard. That is a water monster being sent to activate a card effect. So we're gonna send the Seahorse. Add wave. And now Mermail King has seen, okay, a water monster was sent to the graveyard to activate an effect. Literally says in the text. So that's how we're able to have some synergy, because we're not just splashing it in the engine because we want to splash it into it. There's actual inherent synergy. Okay, so what do you have? What do you want to do here? You have choices. You want to either add the equip spell, or you can add the Triana for a Monster Reborn. Now, where would you set the Abyss scale? Only if we have an additional Marincess extender. So in most of the cases, you'll probably have other Marincess monsters in your hand, like a Spring Girl, Aqua Angel. So in that regard, you have an additional extender to make a Link 4. So in that case, you will use the Abyss scale Mizuchi and equip it to the King Neptibus. But in this case, I like searching for Triana if I don't have access to that. And then I'll use the effect to reborn any monster that's Atlantean or Mermail from my hand or grave. So I like normally something from my graveyard, because I will have it in the grave anyway. Obviously, Shadow Squad has an activates effect to become level 7. Don't really need that. And then now I'm going to go into... now, you could do this also. Because you search the Abyss Shrine, you could send it to the graveyard of Shadow Squad and then have the additional ability to draw 2 cards next turn on for your opponent's turn. So let's just showcase it for this part of the combo, because you did search it early in the turn. But obviously, we're not going to go into a rank 7 Xyz play here. We're going to go in now into the Link 4. Okay. And that pretty much is the end of the combo. So you're probably thinking, okay, but now you went through all of that just to make this kind of mediocre board. Well, remember, like I said, the plays are not really for going first. It's more about the ability going second. So if someone tells you, okay, but now is this deck viable? I mean, yes, it is viable, because remember, Marincess is fine turn 1. This is just an additional end piece to the turn 1 board. So turn 1 is not really where the problem is. The issue is, how do you play through boards going second? I think that's what's really where the deck shines. So I'm just showing you a combo for turn 1, but obviously I showed you replays also turn 2, how it actually works. And I actually show you that now later on, how that actually works. So this is a standard turn 1 end board, but the only addition now is you have Neptibus. How did you get to Neptibus? You basically use other bodies to get there. Now, let's say you get negated at some point or whatever. The main thing is you have enough material to make a Link 4 plus wave. That's what I'm trying to get at. Because even if you get disrupted by all the other things, you've probably eaten a lot of hand traps from your opponent, and you've made a mediocre board, but you're still able to make a Link 4 at least. And that's like the main thing. So this is pretty much what the end board is going to be, because you're going to have Abyss Shrine that will draw a card. You're going to have Bubble Reef that will also draw a card. And also the nice thing is Neptibus will trigger if you discard a water monster, and you can now equip the spell, the Mizuchi that you didn't search earlier, or you can add back the Triana from the graveyard if you want to. But that's only for the next turn. But for the opponent's turn, you can set the spell again, the Mizuchi, and then you're good to go. So you have wave, you have potentially hand traps that you still have, and you possibly have a spell effect negate off the Mizuchi if you do decide to equip it, if you're not going to run it. So that's pretty much what the turn 1 end board now has. Additional layers of interruption, as much as, okay, now I have to deal with this card on top of this card being also kind of really good, and also to be unaffected because of wave. So if they deal with it, you get a follow-up next turn adding an Atlantean, and again, it pushes you for going second or turn 3. Very, very good. So I think the grind game becomes infinitely better now, because it was really decent, but now we actually have more explosive plays. So don't be surprised when you just blow your opponent out completely, because if you can't deal with this somewhat half decent board, then that's it, because that's what Marincess is known for, right? Make a decent board ish, have 1 or 2 disruptions, next turn we kill them. That's how it works. So like I said, turn 1 is not really where this deck is really shining for me. It's more about what it does turn 2, and turn 2 is just amazing. So that's why I showed you those replays earlier, and I do recommend go watching back the stream and looking at those replays, looking at the videos that I posted, and seeing exactly how this deck does going second, because I think that's where people are going to underestimate how good this deck does. Because just like how, if you want a comparison, think of Snake Eye Fire King. What makes it so good versus Snake Eye Fiendsmith? Well, I would say there are similar decks, but Snake Eye Fiendsmith is more of a control, hand trap heavy deck, you know, but it's not as explosive compared to Snake Eye Fire King, because we all know how good the Fire King cards are. The Fire King cards are very explosive, and it makes a control deck more explosive. So that's what Marincess does, and Mermail. Mermail gives Marincess the more explosive power going second. So that's how I see the synergy between the two. So you can think of it as you must, but pretty much this is what the ideal end board would be now, as an additional way for, you know, especially for going first. You can beat Nibiru or other potential hand traps. You can play through hand traps quite well, and especially going second, you can actually do a lot of things. Now, obviously, I don't have specific combos for going second, because obviously going second depends on what the board is. So, like I said, that's why I have the replays lined up to show you exactly how going second is, and then you'll see for yourself, oh, okay, you actually can trigger this, you can trigger that, you know. So that's why I have the replays lined up, so I can show you exactly how the deck does going second, because I think that's where the deck shines. Because I think people know by now how good Marincess is by default, but you don't really know how good it is going second, because yes, going second, it can play, but if you lose to normal summon, you're done. Now you can't really set it anymore, because if you open a certain hand, you actually have somewhat of a chance to break a good board, you know. So I think that's really one of the reasons why I like this version, not necessarily because of its abilities going first, but more of its abilities going second and beyond. Because while you are breaking boards, you're also still comboing, you're still getting your follow-up, and that pretty much aligns with what I like to do. Because everyone knows how my playstyle is. If you see me on my past streams or my past videos, you've seen the way I play. It's not like how normal people will play. You want to make sure, okay, you have good enough, and you're able to break boards, you're able to have follow-up, you're able to, you know, have decent interactions with your opponent, and that's pretty much what you are trying to do. Because we don't want to sit there combo for 20 minutes and then now you have no out. Then it's like, oh, okay, normal summon is done and that's all. Then you have no choice but to surrender. But now you actually have a bit of a chance, because now the Atlantean cards are putting pressure on your opponent, because if you negate that stuff, you are opening up your normal summon to be free. Then you're good to go, like, oh, you still have place? Oh, okay, great. So that's why I like it. So again, this is the basic. You definitely check out the streams, check out the videos, and see exactly how, you know, the other lines you can do. But if you do want me to do a dedicated video just showing you all the possible combos, maybe a spreadsheet of sorts, just saying, okay, look, if you open this and this is combo, this and this is full combo, like, and I'll show you exactly how it does and the sequencing, then you can definitely let me know by leaving a like on this video, and you can definitely expect that to come your way. Because ultimately, if you want to see it, I don't mind showing it to you. I don't know why people want to sell you stuff or whatever. I feel like you should be able to show the stuff. If the guys want to know how the deck works, how it functions, you should be able to give them all the resources. I mean, I understand, yes, people want to make money off it by spreadsheets and doing it behind the paywall, fine. But I mean, that's what we do as content creators, right? So if you're doing it for content, then yeah. But I feel like it's for me, it's I like Yu-Gi-Oh! I like how these decks are played, and if I can show you some combos that are quite unique, then I don't mind sharing with you guys, because already the videos are there for you to show and have reference points for whatever you need to do. So if you do want me to see those detailed combos, by all means, leave a like and I'll prepare them for you. No problem. But otherwise, you can check out on my streams and obviously on the YouTube videos that I upload. So this is just, again, a mini showcase of what the engine does. Literally, if you trigger Dragoons in any way, form or fashion, that's pretty much what the end line you're going to come up with. Now, if you want to see what it does going second, and again, stay tuned for the streams and upcoming videos, because then you'll see exactly what's going to happen. So this is Diamond Boss signing out, and I'll see you on the next video. Cheers.